Welcome back. We are here again. This time, Evan Campbell joins us from the Rectory School in Connecticut.
Yes,
And
sir.
he is the Dean of Students, which is a hell
Yep.
of a job. And then on top of that, he coaches the varsity tennis team. He coaches the hockey team.
Yep.
And he does some other things as a longtime boarding school employee that he will take
Yeah.
you through the journey and the litany of things that we like to call in this world other duties as assigned by head of school. And so, welcome to the show, Coach. Thanks for being here.
Welcome. Thanks, Justin. I appreciate it. So, yeah, actually, you're 17 at Rectory now, which is
Woo!
absolutely insane to think about. Started literally right out of college. And so now, Dean of Students, I'm actually the interim director of secondary school advising for the year as we are trying to
Which is
support our
like a high
families.
school college placement counselor, essentially.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think Amy, when she listens to this, Amy Graham, your director of enrollment, and she hears that we have 65 new kids going to Stevenson School next year. Boom, my job's done, her job's done, everyone wins. But I coach. I'm our varsity tennis head coach. I'm the assistant coach for our varsity hockey team. As a dean of students, I run our student development and leadership program. I run all of our leadership outings for our kids. And then I am it's not the most fun job, but the you got in trouble guy at school, where if a kid makes a decision or that they shouldn't, then they come and they see me. And even that end of it, I know looks a lot different at the junior school end than it does at the secondary school end. And I can just say before we get started, I fell backwards into this world. I played college tennis up at Colby Sawyer College up in New Hampshire. And another school in our conference was Nichols College in Dudley, Mass. And I stayed in touch with that head tennis coach. I wrote him an email after I graduated. I was like, hey, man, really appreciate the way you run your program. Thought it was just a genuine reach out to somebody that I respected. We stayed in contact, and I ended up being his assistant tennis coach at Nichols College. And then that pays zero bills. So I started working at Rectory part time, and it grew from there. And between teaching, between coaching, I was the assistant athletic director for the year. I've worked in the admissions office. Those other duties as a sign will get you.
Yeah, people that are in the know will laugh at that. People that are not in the know will understand by the time we're done. So, give a little bit of
Yeah.
context to
Okay.
two things, if you don't mind. Number one, junior boarding school. What
Yeah.
is that, right? So, for those of us in California that don't know what real boarding, excuse me, high school boarding school is,
Yeah.
other than we've seen it in the movies. And I say that partially tongue in cheek, but on the East Coast, for those of you that are listening, you throw a rock, you hit a boarding school, and especially in the
Yeah.
Northeast. And if you
Yeah.
didn't attend one, you definitely know somebody that did. The
Sure.
West Coast, you're what? Why do your parents do that to you? And anywhere in between. And in the
Yeah.
junior boarding school world, which I'll let you describe, that's question one. What the hell is that? Then
Yeah.
question two, the unique scenario of where you guys are sitting right next to a high school that
Yeah.
is tertiarily connected, but you're different institutions and what that's
Correct.
like and
Yeah.
how prevalent that is in your world as well. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So one junior boarding school now, like you said, you can hit a 9 iron and hit a boarding school from anywhere in the state of Massachusetts or Connecticut, right? When you look at the boarding school map, it'll show the whole country on one side, and then you can flip it over and there's a cutout just of Massachusetts and Connecticut because of how many there are. I will say there's a decent pocket out in California, a little bit down in the mid-Atlantic as well, but let's say roughly 250 boarding schools in the United States. Don't hold me to that number, roughly. There are 11 junior boarding schools. That is it. We're all up in the Northeast.
Huh.
7 of us are co-ed, 4 of us are all boys. So we are a unique entity. We board middle school students. We have day students as well. In order to be a junior boarding school, you need to have boarding in ninth grade. That needs to be your graduating year. So that's the little caveat. There
Interesting.
are some high schools, shout out St. James School, Hagerstown, Maryland. They're going to have eighth grade boarders.
Okay.
There's going to be some of those high schools that
Yeah.
start boarding in eighth grade. Groton School up in Massachusetts. That's going to be another one.
Yeah.
We end in ninth. So I know when most people hear boarding school and they think of their ninth graders as sort of the babies on campus, for us, those are the leaders.
Okay.
Those are the kids who are proctors in the dorm. Those are the kids who are on the student council. We're pairing up our ninth graders with our fifth graders because that's our youngest middle school student. Every fifth grader gets a ninth grade mentor.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different way of doing things. But to boil it down in a very simple basis, the average age of our boarder is about 13 or 12 years old. So we're fifth through ninth grade boarding as opposed to 9 through 12, with the majority of our students going off to secondary schools. Now, we are going to really starting next year switch up our secondary school advising program. And it's
Oh,
something we've talked with our head of school about to include the word outcomes, which is really important for us because we do have some students who will matriculate from Rectory to a public school. If their local public high school is really strong, they may matriculate back to a home country if they were just here for a year or two and they were going to go back into their school system. So we want to make sure, similar to Stevenson or wherever, maybe you have a student who joins the Air Force straight out of the school. I think it's a little bit more rare, probably at the secondary school level, because they're typically college preparatory. We want to make sure that we support students regardless of the outcome that they're looking for. And
yep.
that way, like this year, all 65 of our graduates get
Mhm.
the same volume of support and care from the school.
Yeah, no, I
And
just on
then,
that note,
yeah,
we have a kid who's in my oldest daughter's class, 21, who
yeah,
went straight to the Coast Guard Academy, like
yeah,
the movie The Guardian, and he
yeah,
was that. So that was 5 years, 4 years ago, 5 years ago,
yeah.
and he was first on site jumping out of a helicopter as a rescue swimmer in that Baltimore bridge crash.
Wow.
Yeah,
Good for it. Well, if he's listening, thank you very much for your service.
yep.
That's awesome.
Faculty kid, just FYI for people that are listening, but keep going.
And then you had another question that I've already forgotten.
The other question was,
Yeah.
and you can describe this for people that are listening that haven't
Yeah.
seen this, but your school basically is shares
Oh, Pomfret. Yeah.
a boundary with
Yeah.
Proc Pomfret,
Pomfret
who
school.
yeah, but you're different schools, but
Correct.
obviously there's matriculation there. I think you when I was there, the public school near you is actually solid, so people go there. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe
Yeah.
it's a different place, but
Yeah.
ultimately we have a lower school that's in Carmel that
Yeah.
is ours. You guys
Yep.
are right next to a high school that, again, you're connected, but you're different. And
Correct.
what's the prevalence of that amongst the Northeast
For
of
sure.
those 11 schools and them actually sitting? What's the school that's across Fay from
Yeah.
Deerfield, right? Or things like
Fay's
that.
right next to St. Mark's, and
Who's
Eagle
across
Brook
from?
and Bement are right next to Deerfield. So
Yeah,
it is really prevalent amongst the junior boarding schools
yeah,
for sure. First of all, like you said, the public school down the road is phenomenal, and they're an independent school as well because they
yeah,
have tuition bearing towns, non-tuition bearing towns. So
yeah,
shout out Woodstock Academy, they do a great
yeah,
job. Shout out Marionopolis down the road as
yeah.
well. But we do touch campuses with Pomfret. If you hit a foul ball on our baseball field, you could hit their tennis
You
facility.
share
Uh,
facilities to a certain
we
degree or no?
do.
Yeah.
We do. And they are incredibly kind and supportive neighbors for us. Being a high school, they have facilities that we do not have. As one of the hockey coaches, we use their rink every day,
Yeah.
right? Our squash team uses their squash courts. We use their indoor tennis facility when the weather isn't great and we're able to. We've used their facilities a lot more than they've used ours. They are great partners. I do think that whether it's us with Pomfret, Fay with St. Mark's, Eaglebrook and Bement with Deerfield,
Mhm.
right? We have a lot of students go there, but we are not a feeder for. I
Yes.
think that's a misunderstanding of,
Yeah.
listen, it's a phenomenal option. Any student that wants to look at Pomfret, it is a great school. The same
Yeah.
way if we were right next to Stevenson, anyone who wants to look at Stevenson, heck yeah, let's go. But it's not a given step for any of our students. They still have to go through an application process similar to any other school. And it's never going to be 25% of our graduating class. We have a large number of students that go there though, both boarding and day. And I think that's a credit to the quality of school they are. And they do a lot of really good outreach with us right next door. And we've been fortunate to have a lot of our faculty kids go there. Their faculty kids go to our school as well. That sort of creates that connection too.
Beautiful. Okay, let's start diving into some coaching stuff. So,
Yeah.
you are primarily a tennis guy based on your background, and sounds like a Northeast native.
Yeah.
What is it like trying to, for lack of a better word, get good at tennis when, I don't know, a quarter of the year is hijacked from you compared to where we're at in California? And for those are, he's laughing because the weather's
Yeah.
bad out there and it's not for me. So it's a different beast, right? Same
Yeah.
when I talked to somebody the other day who's in our world and called me about a golfer who's a rising ninth grader to not place them, but to basically say, look, you're a better option because golf outdoors
Yeah.
here and there is this different world, right? So talk a little bit
Yeah.
about growing up, what
Yeah.
challenges that were like, how you navigate that as a coach at your
Yeah.
school, and what that all feels like.
It's actually a little bit worse because I grew up in Vermont.
Okay.
So I grew up about 200 miles north of here in northeastern Connecticut. I played actually hockey more than tennis growing up. So I
Okay.
started playing hockey when I was 4 or 5 years old. I started playing tennis when I was in about fifth or sixth grade.
Okay.
I was just naturally a little bit better at tennis.
Okay.
I was fortunate growing up that I had an indoor tennis facility right down the road. It was literally called Our Court. And the tennis pro there, Sean McCaffrey, he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I would say that he was such a great influence for me and so supportive for me and took me under his wing. And he actually ended up partway through my freshman year at Colby Sawyer taking over as the
Yeah.
tennis coach. So I got to play for him in college too, and that was completely unexpected. But having the indoor facility without that, I would have never gotten to the level that I needed to be a competitive, even at the D3 level, college tennis player. When I would say that even hockey was probably the same, where growing up, we didn't have the facilities that kids have now.
Yeah.
And even in Vermont, we could only play when it was cold enough, which I
Mm.
know sounds insane in Pebble Beach, California, but it's still not cold enough to have ice in October, early
Mhm.
November in Vermont. And so our seasons were a lot shorter. I think what we've seen over the decades is just the specialization that's gotten out of control because you can play so many
Yeah.
different sports year round because of the new facilities that are being built. And I would say that a huge reason that I got to maybe the level I got to playing hockey through high school and definitely the level I got to in tennis was because I was playing different sports.
Yeah.
I was playing soccer in the fall and then transitioning to even football my junior, senior year. I
Yeah.
was playing hockey in the winter and then I was playing tennis in the spring and then all summer playing wiffle ball with my buddies
Yeah.
outside and then pick up basketball. And then
Yeah.
we literally bought floodlights for our yard so we
Yep.
could play front yard baseball until 11 p.m. with all the neighborhood kids. Like we weren't paying a specialization coach
No.
to help us out 4 or 5 times a week. We were just grinding at 10
Yeah.
p.m.,
Oh yeah.
staying out of trouble as best we could because we're hitting a tennis ball across the road.
Yeah. No doubt.
So
No doubt.
a whole different way. I know I just took you on a little bit of a tangent
No, it's
there.
great because it's all
Yeah,
foundational and we
yeah,
could regale our revisionist history for years, but it's I got spray paint out and painted base paths on the street for our
yeah,
wiffle ball stadium, whatever. We all
yeah,
did that. And but it is what it is, right? Times change,
yeah,
times shift. But I will say
yeah,
this, because with the way you just framed, we couldn't play hockey till it was cold enough, meaning the ponds got to freeze over and all of that.
yeah.
And it's hell no. I'm not getting on water like, so it's
Oh,
mentality too. As a Californian, I don't like going in the ocean because I'm scared
man,
of it, let alone trying to skate on ice on top of
there is
water that you might
nothing.
fall through.
I'm telling you, there is nothing better. My son's going into seventh grade here at Rectory.
Yeah.
There's nothing better. He's fallen in love with it too. He plays
Yeah.
hockey. There's nothing better than pond hockey. There's
Oh
nothing
man.
better than being outside because you can be out all day.
Yeah.
You don't have a 50-minute slot, right?
Yeah.
Hockey is different than every other sport where
Yeah.
you have X amount of time for practice. You go to baseball practice, you go to tennis practice, we
Yeah.
can extend.
Yeah.
Hockey, that door opens and the Zamboni comes out.
Yeah.
You
Interesting.
can go out on that pond all day. You can
Yeah.
leave, you can eat, you can come back. And it's something about being outside. Now, I can say, if anyone's listening, we do drill holes in the ice here at school on the pond because you got to make sure it's at least 4 inches thick,
Yeah. I would
right?
want
And
12. Just saying.
we got there a couple years ago, which means
Nice.
we could have taken any work truck you've ever seen in your life and parked it out there.
Oh, wow.
But no, nothing better than skating outdoors.
Yeah, and I figured that, and it's one of those things again. I'm sure there are things as a Northeastern that you look at us and you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Correct.
Yeah, correct.
Correct. Yeah.
Like earthquakes? No, I'm not coming over there.
No.
Okay, so back to the coaching
Yeah.
slash
Yeah.
title role stuff. So dean of students, you
Yeah.
mentioned I'm the guy they see when they get in trouble. Your job's way bigger than that. But I also
Yeah.
joke, our dean of students, plural, over the time of being here, it's an asshole. And it's like, and I tell him, I'm like the nicest guy on this campus. The
Yeah.
dean of students is an asshole, but it's not. He's a great
Oh,
human. And
come
the
on now.
convolution of those roles where
Yeah.
they're mad at title versus the
Yeah.
human, they
Yeah.
can't process that. Talk
Yeah.
through what that transition was like when you first got behind that chair, how
Yeah.
it compares to coaching, how you've learned to navigate those two roles. Because,
Yeah.
like, when I'm not coaching and I'm just the AD, like, I'm
Yeah.
everybody's buddy. But then when I have to be like the coach as well, then it gets a little tension arc there.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting at boarding schools in general, the different relationships you have with kids. And I do think it really strengthens everything at the end because The relationship that I may have with you as a dean of students, or if I have you in a classroom, is going to be different than on the sports fields. And then it's going to be different in the dining hall or in the dorm. And I think it creates a better relationship. I think what would be difficult for me if I worked at a day school and I was just the dean of students who did not coach, and that was my entire identity. I think then it defines me and my reputation amongst the student body and my peers, right? Because they don't have the ability to see me in a different way. I think the fact that they can see me as being that passionate about public speaking, that passionate about leadership development, that passionate about tennis, about ice hockey, the fact that they can see my wife teach all of our ninth grade English classes, they
Yeah.
can see me as a father on campus and they get to know my two dogs. I think there's a humanization there that's so important. And then even within the role, it's something that's very, I would say, pretty widely known here that 90% of our discipline is a conversation with a student of, hey, what happened?
Mhm.
Why did that happen? All right. How do we strategically get through this in a better way next time? We're not a one stop and out school. Like you make one mistake, we're going to kick you out.
You
Now, you
can't be
could do
at
something.
12, 13 average age because you wouldn't have any
No, like there
students.
are certain things that you could do, right? That kids won't. Like nobody's gonna light a fire in the dorm, hopefully, knock on wood. But the majority of our discipline is just gonna be conversations and relationship building. And for me, I think the number one thing I can do is just be present around campus.
Yeah.
And so they can see me as often as possible. And if I'm stopping in the classrooms and saying hi and making sure that I'm eating lunch with different groups of kids, and I'm on our administrator on duty rotation, so they see me in the dining hall at night, they see me at breakfast in the morning, they see
Mhm.
me everywhere, I'm cheering them on at their games, then I become part of the community.
Yeah.
And it's trying to reinforce that you're not in trouble with Mr. Campbell. You're coming to see me because of a decision you made. And how do we work through this together? And then the more proactive work we can do with like our school counseling office, with the advisor system that we have, I think it creates hopefully a better relationship. I'm never going to be the most popular person on campus. I just can't. Somebody that is a teacher, dorm parent, coach is always going to be the most popular person on campus. My goal is that kids see that like I respect and care about each one of them, and that if they are frustrated at me or angry at me and may say some things behind my back, that by the end of the year they see that there's a consistency to what I do and a consistency both in my passion and support and holding them accountable, that they're like, all right, he is in my corner. I hate him sometimes. This sucks sometimes,
Yeah.
but he's not going to quit on me. I think if I can have them leave the year or leave their rectory experience knowing that, then whether or not they love me every single day maybe isn't as important. And I think that obviously ties into coaching too, right? Where as a head coach and as an assistant coach, like those roles are really different. And we can break that down because like
That's the
when I
next
started
question.
coaching,
Yep.
yeah, and so we'll go down that rabbit hole, but I don't need y'all to love me every practice. There's going to be a time I look at our head coach in hockey and I'm like, can you just blow the whistle real quick? Because I'm going to lose my mind. Or in tennis, where I call him in, I'm like, guys, this isn't going to get it done. Like, we're here, we're having fun, but like, this isn't the level that we need to be. This isn't the way we handle ourselves. We go for a run
Yeah.
or we have a harder practice. We extend things. And I know you're going to be pissed at me, but you're going to be pissed at me together. And the next day, we're all going to show up. We're going to let go. We're going to move forward. And I know you said, though, let's get into the head and assistant coach thing because I have a lot of thoughts there.
Yeah. Let me do a 5 second legitimate on how
Yeah.
your growth learning lessons as the dean over the years have
Yeah.
informed and I want to say transformed, but definitely flowed into your coaching approach. And the real thing I'm
Yeah.
after is use the word outcome earlier, right? But the
Yeah.
outcomes that you can offer other people who maybe are just off campus coaches because that's what the school needs, right? They maybe
Yeah.
aren't involved in the co-curricular. And I'd also like to get your take as part of this. What have you noticed about students' growth and development when they are actively involved in the co-curricular, being sports and other
Yeah.
programs, versus
Yeah.
not, and how
Yeah.
that amplifies their growth?
For sure. I think being in this role, I've, I think it's empowering to know that you can coach the way that you know you should be coaching, if that makes sense. I think early on as a coach, before I got into any administrative role, there was a lot of caution. I think caution in having maybe more of a real conversation with a player. caution in I don't want to step over a line, caution in I want to make sure that these kids like me. And I think that's very much a I started working here at 23 years old.
Yeah,
It's very
it's
much a
different.
fresh out of college mentality where you get into drills with the kids and you're like, I got to win this drill. You get into a situation with kids and you're like, I want them to like me or I need them to like me. And then you look back now, 17 years later, and I'm like, man, I had a lot to learn, right? The same way that I'm sure I'm 39 right now. When I'm 50, I'm going to look back at myself right now and be like, man, I had a lot to learn, right? It's going to be constant growth. But I think it was really the not I think trying to win every battle and not focusing on the war in terms of coaching the kids was something at 23, at 24, at 25, at 26, right? Like I hadn't
Mhm.
learned that yet, and I'm hopefully much further along now. And then realizing that it's really tough for a new coach that it's not about you, right?
Yeah,
It's about the kid, right?
yeah,
You are secondary, you are tertiary,
yeah.
and that's where kids are like, where did you play at college? What was your record? What are you doing? And it's guys, it doesn't matter.
No.
My worth as a coach is how good can I get you? How can I develop you? It's not about me. And I think that's a very common young coach and young employee mistake. It's very natural. I'm not criticizing anyone because I went through it myself. But I think that was probably my biggest transformation, especially through this dean of students role where you realize like consistency matters, care matters. And if the kids know you care about them and you're willing to fight for them and not give up on them, that you can have those tough conversations and be like, listen, you are falling short here.
Yeah, yeah,
Here's our game plan. Here's how I'm going to support you and partner with you on this journey. But this isn't good enough
yeah,
from an
for sure.
attitude standpoint, from an effort standpoint, from an execution standpoint, wherever it is, versus when I was a little bit younger, you'd be like, yeah, no, that's fine. You're the man. Right? And a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah,
more hesitant to have those conversations.
yeah. So let's pivot into the coaching situation and what I
Yeah.
like to call role definition amongst our players,
Yeah.
but I also talk about it at the coaching level where I think it is the most important conversation that accidentally gets had the least, which is delegation of labor, which is, or division of labor, right? It's who's doing what, how do you start in a
Yeah.
role, all that stuff. So, difference between being a head coach and an assistant
Yeah.
coach, and you're living it out every day or every
Yeah.
year as a head
Yeah.
coach of tennis and assistant hockey coach. And you have a lot of
Yeah.
thoughts, so why don't you just go?
Man, so when I started at Rectory between 2010 and 2021, I was a head coach of every single team I coached. Every single time, whether it was a varsity B soccer team, head coach, JV hockey team, head coach, varsity tennis team, head coach, all the time. And so for me, I think one of the most important things that happened, I get back into coaching hockey in 2021, right? And I'm the assistant hockey coach. So for the first time, I'm not the head coach. I'm not the one drawing up all the practice plans. I can assist with that. I'm not the one who's the primary point person for the parents, right? I can assist with that. And I think it was like the most necessary, humbling thing that's happened to me within athletics where our head coach now is unbelievable. Ryan Smith, he's an English teacher here. He played college hockey at Stonehill. He is like everything for the program, everything for the school, everything for the parents. There's times where I'm like, all right, man, I'll go grab the pucks. Do you need cones? Do you need pennies? I'll go warm up the goalies. You start practice. What do you need? And so it's one of those like taking a back seat that is so important, I think, for me, but it also opens up the opportunity for him to take a step forward in something that he's more qualified than me. So I think like that was probably personally the most important thing was like learning how to take a back seat because for a long time I've been a director or a dean. Forever I've been a head coach and now it's man, you're not the guy. If you're not here, it doesn't matter. Right. Now, I hopefully I have more of an impact than that, but like it's being more of the support. Now it was interesting with us in our coaching relationship. And I would say with Ryan, I probably have the closest relationship with any coach I've had during my time here. And that's super important as well. I don't know if there's more than 2 or 3 days at any point in the year that he and I do not talk about the hockey team. It can be mid-June and we're texting about lines for the upcoming year. We can talk about drills we want to do, where our kids might be going off to high school, keeping a track of what tournaments they're playing in and how they're doing developmentally. It's a great relationship and it's been super, I would say, cool from like a leadership perspective to watch how our relationship has morphed throughout the years. Because I was the assistant coach his first year at Rectory. And so I was he was the head coach in terms of hockey, and I would handle a lot more of the difficult conversations. And I would run a lot more of the team meetings. And I think it's been really cool to see. Now he's in year 5. It's way different, but like really cool to see him slowly and then very quickly at the end take the reins of, now this is my show now. And I become the support staff. I think that to be a good assistant coach, you need to be egoless and you just need to be willing to do whatever it takes to support the kids. And I think having a little bit of malleability of your role as an assistant coach changes based on the kids on your team, and it changes based on the head coach that you have, right? Because you need to provide balance for the head coach. Because, like I said, when you're a coach, it's not about you, it's about the players. And when you're the assistant coach, it's not about you because it's about the players and it's about the head coach. So you need to
Right.
take that additional step back
Yep.
and then switching and going to tennis in the spring. And then it's like last year, I was the only coach we had on campus that didn't have an assistant when I coached tennis. As we were just managing the teams and finding coaching slots, I went to our athletic director and I'm like, listen, I got this. If you need it for the year, I got this. And I'll have an assistant again this year. So it was a whole 180 shift of now I'm worried about everything.
Yeah.
Now I'm worried about the classes kids are going to miss. Now I'm worried about the practice plans. Now I'm worried about making sure every kid, like we use Aura to check our kids in all the time, right? Are all the kids checked into practice? Are all the comments written on time? Have we reached out to the parents? Have I confirmed the match with the other coach, making sure, like for tennis, that we're following the same format? Like all those little logistic things, like all fell to me.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting to see, like, when you're the head coach, it's all encompassing.
Yeah.
When you're an assistant coach, it can be a little bit more defined. And it's really cool, I think, and beneficial to me, but also beneficial to the kids. As you said, the balance of being a dean of students. It's kind of nice just to be the fun assistant coach sometimes. Like, hey, Mr. Campbell, did you bring a piece of gum? Yeah, here you go. Yeah, you can have it. Or whatever. Like, I bring snacks for the bus and we roll the game singing whatever song on the bus. Like, it's just a whole different relationship with the kids. But I think it's so interesting to see, I think, between hockey and tennis, how different they are to coach. Everything from the delivery of your messages and the relationship you have with your players,
Mhm.
the difference between a head coach and an assistant coach in terms of just the humility I think it takes to be an assistant coach and knowing that, listen, it's never going to be about you.
Yep.
Your name's never going to be mentioned.
Yep.
It's going to be Mr. Smith and the hockey team, right? And they're
Yep.
going to celebrate that as they should for the amount of effort he puts in. And you're doing it because you love it and you're doing it to support. And I don't know, some days I find that to be the most fun that I have all year.
Yeah.
Is just
Well,
rolling in. Yeah.
yeah, there's power in that as well. Is that you
Yeah.
get to tap out into the day. It's like I'm done. I'm go home and like I'll see
Yeah.
you tomorrow. There's so many different ways to inhabit each of these roles along the
Yeah.
spectrum, and
Yeah.
we'll get into a handful of them. But where I want to focus
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
is the transferability of you coaching hockey, you going to tennis, you maybe
Yeah.
spending time at basketball, whatever.
Yeah.
This the world has become so specialized in sports,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that
Hmm.
people forget how much they can learn by doing something else. So what
Yeah.
can you point to specifically, not just as I learned this as a head coach and I'm applying
Yeah.
it as an assistant or vice versa? So there's that question.
Yeah.
Direct. Man, me spending 3 months as an assistant made me a better head coach because of X and vice versa, right? And then the
Yeah.
second piece of
Okay.
me coaching hockey for 3 months made me a better tennis coach because of X and vice versa. So both of those lanes, what do you got on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. And now the specialization thing, I'll just say very quickly, we're fortunate. All of our kids have to play a sport every season. So like, our kids got to play 3 different sports every year, right? So it's a little bit different for us that like
Every school in America should adopt that model.
and it's very nice for us where now you could be running cross country in the fall before your hockey season. You could be playing soccer. We have our volleyball team. We have equestrian, right? But you're going to be doing different things. We have the winter sport. I think we have 21 different sports and 39 different teams, and it can shift year to year based on interest, but there's no specialization at our school. So I think that's super important. My number 4 tennis player by the end of the year was a new kid, not a new kid to tennis last year, who's our starting hockey goalie who picked it up. And a big thing he's doing it for is that lateral quickness, and his hand-eye coordination is freakishly good, right? And he's super competitive and mentally strong being a hockey goalie. So that's how we get away from that specialization. Now, I do think coaching the 2 sports has helped me be a lot better at coaching the other because they're so different in their delivery, right? There is nothing maybe you disagree as a football guy. I don't think there's anything as intense as coaching a hockey game.
No, number one, absolutely not. I'm not a football guy. I'm a basketball guy who is an
Okay,
AD.
sorry.
You moonlight as a football coach because you stand on the sideline, but I'm not really a football guy.
Okay. Like hockey, we're locked in the bench together, right? And the players are on the other side of the glass from the stands, and it's like the mentality of like you're going into battle, right? And I think sometimes in hockey you have to fight your emotions to calm down, right? In tennis you're doing the same but in a whole different way. Tennis, I'm restricted into when I can coach you. I can talk to you very quickly in between points, but I can really only coach you on changeovers. And all of our conversations are just about strategy. Like what I've come to learn as a tennis coach is I really can't tell you anything technical during a match. I can work on technique in practice. That's when we work on technique. That's when we try new things. Maybe it's your grip, the way you're swinging, your toss on your serve, whatever it is. During a match, I do not mess with that. We are purely there for strategy because I can't make things too complicated for you. Hockey is just blunt feedback, right? You come off the ice and you make a decision. That's not good enough. That's not going to get it done. Off the glass to get out of the defensive zone, their defensemen are pinching, whatever it is, but it's quick, blunt feedback, and then you go off. And then you come back on the bench and then you go off. I think what hockey has also taught me and allowed me to be a little bit more comfortable in tennis is the way you interact with your players is just different than any other sport in hockey. They're going to give it back to you, right? And I think it's really important as coaches that you give them that leeway. I'm never going to cross the line and disrespect you and start swearing at you. You're not going to cross the line, disrespect me and start swearing at me, but you're going to give it back to me too if you think I'm wrong, right? And there's those passionate and heightened conversations, and then you laugh about it after because you created the connection with the kid. And I think what that's allowed me to do is be better at taking feedback from the player in tennis, right? Versus very early on in my career where it was, this is how you win the match. This is what you're going to do. I'm like, I don't want to hear it. Just do this and you're going to win because maybe that's what worked for me as I was in high school and college. But
I was like, what are you seeing out there? What do you think?
now it's more of a conversation like, hey, why did you do that? I'm trying to understand your strategy so we can break it down. Now, tennis borders on counseling or therapy a little.
Okay, so we're back after the power loss, coach. But the last thing you said
Yeah.
was that coaching tennis is like therapy. So why don't you finish that thought?
Yeah, it's listen, those individual sports where every kid should play an individual sport at some point. I think there's such a value to individual sports and team sports, just like there is the head and assistant coaching. Tennis is you're so isolated. And it's just you against somebody else on the other side of the net. And at the end of this match, you're going to shake hands, but one of you has to win, one of you has to lose. And I think it can be so like difficult to get through for a kid, right? Or even an adult when you're playing that you'll have kids come to you and they're just at a loss. I can't hit a forehand today. I can't serve. I can't. And you're just like, you're not even at that point coaching tennis. You're helping them through a task, right? Like, how do we get through this together? I think that's what's so different about tennis. I don't really ever have a hockey player come off the ice. I can't skate today. I just can't do it, right? That's not something that you're going to hear,
My
but you're
legs
going to
aren't
hear in
working.
tennis, like, I can't serve. I can't hit the ball in. Well, the harsh reality is if you can't, you're going to lose, right?
Yeah.
You just can't win if you can't hit a serve in. But then it's okay. What's going on? How do we do this, right? We got 2 minutes and we got to break it down and there's an efficiency to it. But okay, so what's working?
Yeah.
What's not, right? And it's the ability to, when you're a parent and when one parent starts losing their mind, the other parent usually gets really calm, right? And we rotate back and forth doing that. Hopefully you at least agree with me and it's not just mine.
Oh no, man! I want to tell you a story about last night, but we can do it after we get
but
off.
but it's one of those things, right? And so when your player gets the most heightened, that's when you're your most calm as a coach, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
what's going on? We can talk our way through this. And I think that's tennis because it's so mental.
Yeah.
And when you're playing hockey, the majority of time you're on the ice, the game is happening. What's crazy is when you look at like numbers of when you're on the court for tennis, you're only actually playing a tennis point. It's 20% of the time. It's something ridiculously small. And the rest of the time you're walking around and you're stuck in your own head.
Yeah.
And that's where it's really difficult. Like golf.
Yeah.
How often are you actively swinging the club?
Yeah.
Almost never, unless you're me, because you got to do it a lot, but you're stuck in your head and you're thinking.
Yeah.
And that's where the difference is. So I think it's a really cool study in psychology to coach those two sports
Yeah.
with how different they are in terms of their intensity. Like when I talk to my tennis team before a match, it's very calm. There's times you're talking in the locker room before a hockey game and you don't even know where your sentence is going to end, right? You've gotten way out over your skis.
Yes.
You can see it on the kids' faces. They're like, you're turning red. You got to ratchet it back,
Oh,
right?
so
It's
good.
a whole different mindset.
Yeah.
And to that point too, like I said, I think it's so important that kids do individual sports and they do team sports. I think the skills that they can develop lifelong when you're in a team sport, the ability to work together, the humility that you need, the willingness to take a back seat and let someone else have their shine, supporting each other, going through those ups and downs, important. It's similarly important to play an individual sport at some point, and realize you can rely on yourself and you
Yeah.
can get through something without the help of others.
No doubt.
I think it's so important for kids to be able to do both.
Yeah.
Now, you could get me like baseball's kind of both in one, and you get a little bit of that experience 2 in 1 there. But I think it's really cool to see our kids that are individual athletes and team athletes, like how they handle each one.
Yeah. No, that's gold. Okay, so you take that same idea and you apply it to how has being an assistant informed being a head coach in your execution of each role, because I've joked over the
Yeah.
years, and you led me to this, the way you described something and head coaching being all encompassing. And I've always joked, hey, do you like coaching? Yeah, cool. Stay an assistant coach. You want to be a head coach? You want to be a head coach? About 15% of what you do is coaching. Everything else is
Yeah.
not coaching.
Yeah.
But as you
Yeah.
sit in the assistant chair or the head coach's chair and you
Yeah.
get reps and reps, just like you described playing different sports, give again the quick
Yeah.
takeaway for everybody that maybe hasn't inhabited those. Here's what you learn when you do this.
Yeah.
Maybe even without the experience, here's what you can try to apply.
Yeah. I think you learn, like you said, you learn everything that's not coaching by being a head coach. Right? Because you're just as worried about the grades your kids are getting. Are they staying up with their homework? What classes are we missing? Which parents do I need to manage? Right? You're worried about everything all the time, right? You're the go-to for everything. I think it's so great in terms of time management. I think it's great in terms of you can learn a lot of skills in one. As an assistant coach, I think you end up learning, if you want to become a great coach, be an assistant coach for a great head coach. That's when you learn everything, right? That's your internship right there, because you will watch somebody who can execute every job. You'll watch somebody who can compartmentalize and have a really difficult conversation with a parent and then go coach that kid right after, and that kid has no idea you just spoke to their parent, right? Those skills that those head coaches have, the practice plans they develop, the way they speak to kids when things are good, the way they speak to kids when things are bad, the way they talk before a big game, the way they talk to them after a big loss, right? Like all those things that you can learn. I think that being an assistant coach is being a sponge, right? And you're absorbing as much as possible. Now you also have, I think, a really cool ability to sit back and watch sometimes mistakes that happen from a head coach, because the reality is none of us are perfect, right? As coaches, we think all of our ideas are going to go perfectly. It's the reason we had them. But you have the ability to watch somebody be like, I would do that a little bit different, right? And it allows you to get those scrimmage reps, those practice reps of being a head coach in your head of how would I handle this? How would I have handled that? Because you're going to deal with those issues versus the head coach. I think it's you are jumping into a fire, and not in a bad way, because I'll be honest, I prefer being a head coach, right? That's my personality type. It's what I do every day within the school. But I do think like all young coaches, you should be an assistant coach at least one season. If you're in the boarding school world, or if you're only coaching one team, you should be an assistant coach to start, because that's the way you're going to learn, right? Is you see how many top flight college football coaches, right? You talk about Dan Lanning, who's one of the top coaches up at Oregon right now. He was the coffee guy when he first started in the SEC, right? And he worked his way up and he learned from a lot of people and he developed his own style. And then he went through the roof career wise because he was able to connect with people and worked his tail off and had the ability. But he wouldn't be where he was without the head coaches he learned from.
So in that,
Yeah.
when you say you should go be an assistant, would you say the same thing
Yeah.
to a head coach?
It's tough. If you can, yes, but now I'm putting on the athletic director hat, not that I am one. Do you have the ability to do that? Right? I think that's the difficulty that schools get into is, man, if you get someone who's a really good head coach, they're probably going to be the head coach, right? Of a couple different things. And because the assistant coach is so important and so beneficial, the head coach is more important, right? And so, as an athletic director, as an institution, you got to put the right head coach in. And if you have someone that's a really good head coach for 2 seasons, they're going to be a head coach for 2 seasons. I think at that point, it's really important to create a situation that you have some sort of coaches council at your school, that you have a way that your head coaches can connect and learn from each other, right? That iron sharpens iron kind of theory. I think it would be great if every coach was a head coach for a season, an assistant coach for one, too. But that's one of those ideas, like, we're not in utopias here, right? We don't have the ability to build our perfect situations. I do think that it would be beneficial, though, if you could pull it off. But I do think there's a way that you can split up tasks as a coaching staff. And if you're a hockey team and someone's going to drop the power play and penalty kill, and the other one's going to draw up what we're doing for a breakout, or I know in football, like, you have your coordinators who are in charge of different things. And so, like, you're the head coach of the defense, but you're not the head coach of the team, and you can blend roles. But I just know that watching it here at Rectory and seeing it at a whole bunch of different boarding schools, like, a lot of times your head coaches are your head coaches, and you're relying on them because they don't grow on trees.
Yeah, no, and I don't disagree with that from a leadership standpoint. I also feel like our girls water polo coach is probably the best water polo coach in the state, if not one of the top
Yeah,
in the country. And he spent 10 years at another school, came here, and it was like chomping at the bit to be the head coach. And I'm like, yeah, no, you're going to be an assistant for a year. And it's like, what? And I'm like, listen, man, this place is different. Get your feet under you. Let's figure out what this is like.
yeah,
Do all the things you need to do. And he was afterwards like, thank you for doing that. And it's like, there are times where you need to get a different perspective just so you can
yeah,
understand culture, so you can understand that you don't have all the answers. And it's not because you don't,
correct.
it's because the landscape changed under your feet, right? So I think you're right. And I would offer people that are a head coach, it's like, hey man, go coach, be assistant baseball coach for a year if you're a football coach or if you're a
Yeah,
tennis coach, whatever it is, just to get a different perspective. Because what I think you're right on is get the right people on the bus and then get them in the right seats. And that sometimes means that those
yeah,
head coaches are going to be heads of multiple things. And it's the same reason in our
yeah,
schools, there's a very small contingent of people that are being a dorm head, they're being the head coach, they're being the department chair, they're being
yeah,
the dean of students, they're being whatever. And it's not
yeah,
a knock that other people aren't capable. It's that some people are just really good at being assistants and that's their calling, right? And how do we find that for
yeah,
everyone by experimenting?
yeah. And then it's one, I would say, with that water polo coach, how many people would have the humility to agree to that for the year?
It was hard.
Right. That sounds like, yeah, but that sounds like a unique person, right?
Yes, for
It's
sure.
a unique situation where you need to have the confidence as the athletic director to say, this is the best path, knowing that you probably have to have your head of school support, right, of everyone being on
Mhm.
board with it. And then that individual needs to have the humility or at least willingness to be
Mhm.
on board.
Yeah.
And uh, that sounds rare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You
Not to
mentioned it
promote.
earlier in regards to
Yeah.
being a good assistant is you're filling the holes of the head coach.
Yeah.
You are egoless, you
Yeah.
are malleable. And I think I had a
Yeah.
conversation the other day where it was, hey, I want to coach on the varsity level. And, how do I
Yeah.
do that? I felt like it would be my turn. And it was almost like my advice is go talk to the coach and tell him that you're gonna keep the scorebook. Like whatever you need to do to be around it so
Yeah.
you can, number one, learn what that human being needs from you, right? And
Yeah.
it's not about what you can necessarily bring to the table. It's like what are their needs? And I joke as I hire assistants within my own department, it's like number one criteria is what do you do really well that I suck at? And number two
Yeah.
criteria is
Yeah.
like how are you going to be dissenting voice when I think I have all the answers and I need you to tell me I'm wrong. Those are the top
Yeah.
two criteria. If you can't do that, keep it moving. And it's not because you're not skilled. It's
Yeah.
this is what I need. And we did a similar thing where we've hired over the last couple years for associate roles. And my conversation with the director or the head of that situation was, hey, listen, you need to do what's best for you. Tune out the
Yeah.
noise. What do you need? Hire that person. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that has to work with them. You're the one that has to make the situation work. You're the one that has to enhance your ability to do your primary job. And you need
Yeah.
that help, not what Justin Climo thinks the help is or who he thinks the best person is. Hire who makes him
Yeah.
whole.
And so you're utilizing head coach feedback input when you're making sure that you put the right assistant coach with them.
I mean, you're trying. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's if you have a bunch of people let me backpedal.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, or I ask them, who's in your personal board of directors, right? And what kind of
Yeah.
opinions are you getting? What type of support? And as a kid, when we'll have a kid that comes in and they're like, hey, I want to consider taking this class or taking this sport or dropping this or dropping that. It's like, cool.
Yeah.
What conversations have you had? I talked to my mom about it. Okay, cool. Did you talk to your current coach about it? Did you talk to your primary sport coach about it? Did you talk to your advisor about it?
Yeah.
Why? I'm like, all of them are going to have a different opinion, hopefully. And
Yeah.
your job is to find your truth within all of those opinions. And if they
Yeah.
have all the same opinions, then your personal board of directors is wrong because you only need one of those guys. You need people with different
Yeah.
opinions. So I think it's
Yeah.
from that lens that I'm speaking.
Okay. And then do you have, I know you're the one asking me questions, but this is coming to my head right now. As you have your head coach, assistant coach relationship, you're building those. Do they go through anything at the beginning of the year where they're like, all right, who's going to be in charge of this? Who's going to be in charge of that? And they're coming up with sort of a plan for the year? Is that happening more ad hoc, right? Because I know we have literally a document that we fill out prior to a year as a coaching staff of who is going to do the lesson plan, who's going to write the email to the coach or the parents, who is going to check in the kids every day, who is going to write the game recaps, who is going, right? And you literally put the name of the person, right? And most of them can be split, they can be whatever. And you're not beholden to it as long as the job's getting done. But that is literally an exercise that we do here.
I need you to send me that when we hang up. That is
I
a
don't know if that's
phenomenal document. Just
okay.
obviously not the second we hang up, but when
Yeah.
we're done. And I would say yes and
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say I don't dictate
Okay.
that to people, but I probably should because I think the same conflicts and or bumps come along within your team, not your coaching staff, when clear role definition
Yeah.
doesn't exist for each of the players. So I would love that tool. Please send it to me. I'm going to look at that. And I would even say for
Yeah.
myself, I've been doing
Yeah.
this for 28 years. I'm like you. I'm essentially a head coach. That's the role I always fall into in whatever capacity I'm
Yeah.
playing. And I've got two former head coaches sitting on the bench next to me. So ours is more malleable, but at the same time, I've been processing almost how
Yeah.
do I get an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, a special teams coordinator? Because that's the newest thing in basketball.
Yeah.
And number one, I have to figure out how to cede some control because that's my problem. Not that they're incapable, I'm just
Yeah.
incapable to figure it out. And so, number two, to do what you said
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
write this thing down, and now it's all spelled out, and now you have that clarity. Shit, bro, I've never even thought about that. I love that. It happens organically because of, I think, the nature of 28
Yeah.
years of figuring out division of labor. But I also know that if I
Yeah.
could give that as a
And
tool,
ours is more.
it
Yeah.
would be awesome.
And I think those things can be amended. For us, it's like administrative tasks, basically. Who's going to make sure to check these boxes that as a coaching staff you need to do administratively. But I do think there's power in those conversations because to your point of, I know my personality when I'm a head coach and I have an assistant, they're going to be like, what can I do today? And I'm like, just have fun with the kids. And I'm going to underutilize my assistant coaches. And I
Yeah.
know that's my shortcoming as a head coach.
Yeah. All of ours.
Is the personality of, I want it done right, I'm going to do it. And then you realize I have spent dozens and dozens of hours over the years doing the same monotonous thing that I could have trained someone else to do. and then I could have put my attention somewhere else.
Well, and
But
it,
each individual time, it was a little bit less to take care of it yourself.
yeah. And the interesting thing is
Yeah.
that carries over beyond sports and coaching and school
Yeah.
to professional world where one of our
Yeah.
former students is interning at a company and the bottleneck is the guy whose name is on the door because he knows that he wants it done a certain way and
Yeah.
that he would then need to stop what he's doing, spend a day to teach them what to do to get it right.
Yeah.
So he tried to give them this task the other day and he was basically saying, "I thought I could get away with that and you guys could figure it out, but nope, I got to stop and do this." And it's teach a person to fish or give them a fish. And
Yeah.
is the time up
Yeah.
front worth it to get the hours on the back end back? And we never think it's worth it. We'll just do it ourselves.
Yeah. And that was probably, I think, one thing that I learned in tennis in particular. A couple years ago, we started dividing up practices. We do top six singles players. Top six players play singles. The next six players play doubles. So 6 singles, 3 doubles every match. We don't have our kids repeat as junior school. We could, but we want to get more kids into every match developmentally. And we would break up practice, and I'd be like, I'll take the singles kids, you take the doubles kids for 3 days in a row. Here's our focus points. You're good to go. And then after a few days, we switch. I'll take the doubles kids, you take the singles kids. And I think doing things like that is where teams run their best, right? Somebody has their individual focus for a few practices. Then I think what was really nice about that too was it gave the kids exposure to different coaching as well, right? Knowing that my assistant coach is going to bring something forward that maybe I wouldn't, right? They're going to have a little bit more emphasis maybe on net play. Mine's going to be a little bit more on, I don't know, spacing on the court, shortening points, whatever it is. So I think that was probably for me something that was like 10 years too late in terms of, am I willing to relinquish this?
Yeah. Oh, I've been there. It's like,
Yeah,
man,
I
what
mean,
if we
and we
started
can
this?
laugh about it like those. I don't know, but that's coaching,
Oh,
that's teaching, that's parenting, right? You
yeah.
look back and you're like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
But
That's funny.
you can't replicate those emotions that you're feeling in your head or whatever it
No,
is.
no, that's so good. I love it. All right, let's
But
wrap
no,
up
I
this.
felt that the more you relinquish, the better it is. Yeah,
Yeah, no, you're right. And I'm laughing over here because
great.
I had that 10 years late. And it's, yeah, wouldn't it be great if we could start over with all the wisdom we've acquired? So that's what the show's about. We're offering it up for the world to see, letting them have
Yeah,
all of our
man.
mistakes. But here's the deal. So, what have you most recently changed your
All right.
mind on? And the reason I want to know is
Yeah,
that we are no longer rewarded for challenging our belief system due to the algorithms, due to the polarization of community, whatever it is. But it doesn't
yeah,
have to be sports. It could be in your dean role, it could be in your
yeah.
parenting role, it
Okay.
could be in your spouse role, but something you've changed your mind on, and there's a reason for it. It was like, I moved from here to here, and I'm actually proud of it. Here's why, and I need to do more of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and I think professionally, and this was within sports, like trying to create more of an individual connection with everyone I coach and everyone I come in contact with, and taking the time to have conversations with them about their day, about their family, about what's your favorite candy, super simple, silly things like that, especially with the age of our kids, sorry. One thing I started doing even last tennis season that I don't even know if the kids saw that I was starting to do it, but it just became the habit. I would try to get out to the tennis courts before everyone else. Now, Ryan's younger brother Ethan would beat me out there because he is sprinting out of his last class to get to the courts. And I would walk outside of our tennis courts and give every kid a high five or a handshake and say hi to them and ask how their day was before they even got to the courts. And just that quick little connection piece of just, hey, how are you? Kid gets on the ice, you give him a hug before hockey practice. Those things about creating those connections, I think that's what our players need. I think more than ever, I think that's what's missing from the club sports landscape, right? And that's what's so beneficial about the boarding school world is you can see your coaches as human beings. Your coaches can see your players as human beings, and we see your ups and downs and we support you. I think the big change I had last year was really trying to create more of a personal connection with each one of our kids so they knew I was in their corner, right? We're going to have tough moments and we're going to hold each other accountable, but I care about you more as a person than I do a tennis player. I care about you more as a person than I do a hockey player. So that was, I think, the biggest change. Something literally as simple as I walk out of the courts, outside of the fence, and I give everyone a high five, give everyone a handshake, ask how their day was, tell them I'm excited to see them, and just create that relationship. Those things take 30 seconds, cost you $0, and make a world of difference if you're a young coach.
Yeah, no, and that's something that even as an old coach, we may be doing consistently, and we need to almost memorialize it into the daily plan. That's great wisdom, great advice, great
Yeah.
conversation. Appreciate you jumping on and looking forward to seeing
Yeah.
you soon.
Heck yeah. If I'm ever out in Pebble Beach where I'll shoot 158 and you can watch me do it as you shoot much lower.
Hey, all that means is you're getting your money's worth, man. These people that shoot
We,
like 70, they're getting cheated.
oh man, I will get my money. Unfortunately, when I lose 17 golf balls in the front nine, we end up in the negative.